This is an update video to the Ahmaud Arbery situation. I don't want to really want to call it a case, even though it should be. And the reason why I'm saying that's because it's a toss of whether it's going to be a case or not. But I'm going to talk about that in this video. Now, of course, by now we have all seen, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, the video in which it showed Ahmaud Arbery being murdered by these two palm-colored wannabe deputies. And right there in the middle, you see the imagery of, I want to say that's either the dad or the son, I can't really tell, of the one who killed him. And in his hand, you're seeing that shotgun. And I think that's after he was shot the second time before he stumbled and fell to the ground dying. Now I'm going to just give you a play-by-play of what I saw in the video because I'm not going to play it on here. So basically you had Ahmaud Arbery, he was running, jogging through the neighborhood, and then he was cornered off by this pickup truck in which these two individuals was in that truck, and then they went at it with him, and then he tried to get the gun away from the person who shot him. You hear one shot go off, and he's still trying to get the gun away from the person, and then another one goes off, and then that's when he stumbles onto the ground, and then he dies. Before I go any further, let me address the person who was recording. I want to say that this person knows the behavior of these two individuals right here. Something tells me they probably have seen how they have acted and got down before, maybe not to this extreme, and that's what triggered them to say, let me follow them and pull out my phone and record them because something doesn't look right here. And then they decided to go ahead and record. Now, it's amazing because, we're just now seeing this footage, but it doesn't surprise me because we just learned about the case as a whole last month from a shooting that happened at the end of February, right before the virus took off. And I think that's another reason why this story didn't get enough airplay, is because literally we went from what this situation right here was and then right into the virus, like the following week or like within the next week and a half. But something tells me it probably would have got buried anyways, but you know how that goes. But of course, what the story so far is that they didn't charge these two. They said that they claimed self-defense, but then it came out that not one, but I believe two district attorneys or whoever they were had to recuse themselves from this case because they knew, or know, I should say, the dad. So it was a conflict of interest. That's why when I was reading that story, I was like, something about this just doesn't read right to me. Like, he's giving this dad way too much of a clearance to walk away from this completely untouched. And then it came out that he actually knew the dad personally from previous employment. Now, like I said, the story was that these two said there was a string of burglaries happening in this area, and allegedly, Ahmaud was trying to breaking into one of the homes. Mind you, the alleged home he was supposedly breaking into was under construction. There's no windows, there were no doors. What was he going to take? And he was jogging. He was wearing basketball shorts. No, I don't know if he would know. I don't know if he was wearing, but he was wearing shorts and a white t-shirt. What was he going to take? And in broad daylight. No, they went out there with the intent to kill because, to my knowledge, these two, well, one of them had went out there first, then went home and got the other, and they came back with guns in hand. So they had the intent to kill somebody or seriously harm someone that day, and Ahmaud Arbery, unfortunately, was that one that they ended up killing. All because of suspicion. I was on a live stream last night, earlier this morning, and basically you have some black people who will say that I can't stay in the hood because somebody who looks like me is going to do something to me probably. I need to get out. I need to go live in this particular area where I deem it to be safe. Ahmaud Arbery was in a very suburban-like neighborhood where it was not considered a hood. And look at what happened to him. Not saying he had that mindset or anything like that, but that's the mindset a lot of us have, that we have to get away from one situation, go to another situation that's deemed better, but then end up in situations like this. So it's like a double-edged sword in where you really can't win. You went from having to watch your back in one place to having to step on eggshells in another. This reminds me so much of Trayvon Martin, but it's actually worse because these guys right here, these POSs, did not call the cops. They just took it upon themselves to deem Ahmaud Arbery a suspect or a criminal. And notice in the previous video that I did about this, they immediately started listing down his previous misdemeanors from years prior, as if that had any relevancy to why he was killed. They always do that with black people, especially black men. Whenever they are killed, they have to reach back into their past and pull out whatever they can that is deemed criminality, no matter how small it can be. It could be something as so far as littering, and they'll pull it out and say, well, he has this on his record, so we can see why he had to be eliminated. As if anything from his past had anything to do with what transpired that day. He was a threat to no one. They were a bigger threat to him. I swear it sent chills through my body when I heard those 2 gunshots go off. And to see it in real time, because a lot of times you don't see the act happen. You only hear about it. But this time we were able to see it. As if that would really matter, considering how we have seen other situations like this and how they played out in the end. Which leads me into the next part. So they're saying that with the release of this footage, that they want to send this to a grand jury. They want to build a trial around this. But there's just one thing that will hold them back from doing it, and that is the lack of charges that are brought up against this dad and son. As long as they have no charges attached to these two, there cannot be a case made for, or should I say, against them, or at least to be considered to be a trial. So with that being said, if they want this to go to trial, they have to quickly and expeditiously, yes, I use a term from Lean On Me because that's one of my favorite movies, charge them with something that they know that they can prove specifically. Now, don't just charge them with anything just because you want to take it to trial. Charge them with something that you know can stick and nail their asses to the wall. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tricky, especially since all of this stuff is going on, because let's be real here. Even if they say, okay, we're going to charge them and we can get a trial started, that trial probably won't get underway until probably sometime next year because of this pandemic going on, which should give them enough time to build up a case against them. But then again, with this pandemic, with this virus going on, that could also be tricky as well. So it's going to be a tough call. I don't know what direction they're going to go with this, even though we have the footage on tape, not on tape, but on video. Because we have seen situations where black people have been killed in the streets by these race soldiers and these palm-colored wannabe deputies like these two, and nothing happens to them, or they will get a slap on the wrist. Because at the end of the day, that's seen as a form of entertainment for many in the masses, to see another black body hit the floor or hit the pavement. Like I said before, when this whole thing kicked off, I said pandemic or not, virus or not, the palm-colored so-called supremacists does not take a day off to practice their reckless behavior against black people I give you exhibit A through Z, even though this occurred right before the pandemic broke out. But there have been other incidents that have occurred since then. Y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Oh, let me add this one last piece in there because I forgot about it until it just clicked in my head. I saw footage where you had people who went outside of the home where these two dwell at because their address was actually made public and people went out to their homes. But it looked just like the 1960s, 50s civil rights era all over again, where you just had black people marching outside of their home. Black people, let me tell you something. If you wanted to do something to these two, or something that they own, such as that home, you would have done it. Notice how those fools up in Michigan went outside of the governor's mansion, but notice what they had with them in their hands. And that was just so they could go outside. You're talking about the murder of another black person who was unarmed and killed unjustly. And you're still doing the same march, sing, and dance thing. But if you look at the situation that happened in Flint, Michigan, where you had the security guard that was killed by another black person, they had no problem dealing with that, even though it was over a mask. I'm just going to leave it at that because I don't want to say too much on this platform.